friends. It's a pleasure to be here in the college of this quality. It's a great pleasure to be here. I get reminded of my days in the Vivekananda College in Chennai, and the similarities are amazing. And like Professor Ramani, I started with a degree in physics, and I remember a hall like this, where I was sitting there as a student of what used to be called intermediate in those days. And Professor Chandrasekhar, the person who was to earn a Nobel laureate decades later, actually his students earned the Nobel Prize before he did. Right? And but Chandrasekhar was there giving us a talk, and I remember listening to the talk. And he said something very interesting about the hall. Wherever in India I have gone to give a talk, I see a new hall, and this country is building up, and I am sure it will go a long way, and so on and so on. So this may not be a very new hall, right? It has been around quite some time?
No, 3 years.
3 years, okay. So I get reminded of my college days being here. I'm going to talk about the internet, and naturally one talks about what is relevant to the internet today, but we should not ever forget the fundamentals, the basics of what makes the technology. I don't want to say internet and jump into talking about it. I want to say a word about the fundamental ideas, and we have to respect them. Particularly the students need to do that. And I hope you're all able to hear me at the back, and I hope you're able to read the slides. If there is any problem, I want you to stop and tell us. I want to be relevant. You hear me? No problem? Thank you. So, to quickly summarize a few important things about the internet. Just about anything and everything can be represented digitally. All information. You know, in the world of physics, we talk about space, time, matter and energy. And now slowly we are recognizing that information is another part of the architecture of the universe. And information cannot be forgotten or ignored. Another exciting thing about information. But one of the most interesting things is that my awareness of the surroundings here, the picture I have, yes? The picture I have of all of you in my mind can be easily represented in a two-dimensional matrix of about 1,000 by 1,000 picture elements with the 3 colors. And we are all used to it today. The digital representation of images, or the digital representation. Oh, I've been speaking without a mic so far. I'm sorry. So the important thing is the fact that pictures can be represented digitally, that speech can be represented digitally, music can be represented digitally, that anything and everything can be represented digitally is an important dimension, and we take it for granted in the internet. There is another great idea that came in the beginning of the internet. You don't have to send information with 1 bit of information for every unit of time. You can bundle them together and send them as a packet. There are advantages in packetizing, as they say. Why? You can put an address to it, and an address to packet is like a postal letter. And if the postal letter doesn't go immediately, it can be kept aside and delivered the next day. And the postal letter, if it doesn't go one way, if a train fails to run one day, you can send it to another route and send it by another train to another city. Like for instance, if you are sending something to Bombay, and if the train to Bombay for some reason was not available today, if the track is damaged or something, you can send it to Madras and it will go via Madras to Bombay. So packet switching brought all these advantages. And there was this great principle that Shannon discovered, that you can trade bandwidth for accuracy. That however bad an information channel is, however noisy the telephone is, you can still make yourself understood by repeating yourself. And he found methods whereby computers can do automatic error correction. And they use a bit, they deliver a bit lesser bandwidth because they waste bandwidth in repeating the messages. But finally, they get absolutely reliable information across. This automatic handling of error, sometimes it is done by retransmission. You send a packet, it doesn't get received properly. The other computer says, I didn't receive it, you send it again. This was a great development. Then there was this automatic routing I mentioned. If a packet of data cannot go one way, you send it through another way. And the magic of all this is, there are these automatic units called routers, which are little computers, which are there in every city. And in fact, there are thousands of routers even within a city like Bangalore. And these routers talk to each other, they automate so many small, trivial responsibilities from our point of view, but they're absolutely important to the working of the network. They take care of error, they take care of routing, they take care of all kinds of things. As a result, the internet is so reliable and stable. Then came the idea that even computers within a campus or a building can be connected together by the same kind of network that we used to connect Bombay and Delhi and Bangalore. The wide area networks are the ones that run from city to city and building to building and so on. But there was this great idea that you must use only one way of communication, one discipline, one suite of protocols for the local area networks, the wide area networks, and the wide area networks in Japan or the wide area networks in Germany, wherever. There should be one suite of protocols so that all networks can talk to each other. This was obviously not very popular in the beginning. Every country wanted its own set of protocols. The Europeans wanted their own, the Japanese wanted their own, and the Americans wanted their own. There was a problem, there was a protocol war. But finally, when it all got settled, there is one suite of protocols today, which are internationally accepted, which are the Internet suite of protocols. This arriving at one suite of protocols made one network. In the whole world today, essentially, there is one network. And there is a network we all share, the Internet. And making it that the one network was a very important dimension. If we had not succeeded in doing that, the network would not be worth so much. And this became the so-called network of networks. The idea was, let everyone have his network, but we will find a method of connecting all the networks so that they behave like one network. That is what made it possible to have one single network for the whole world. So these are the basic fundamentals, and it probably takes a whole semester to teach these ideas. And I spent a few minutes summarizing them. I hope they are of some interest. You got enough idea what it is. Now let me come to what I am going to talk about today. The things that are exciting to me, things that I worry about, things I write about, and things that we all have to do something about. What are these? There are very big expectations of the Internet. Everybody expects that the Internet will do some kind of magic for all of us. It is true, it has done some kind of magic. For many of us, our lives have been transformed completely. And what has the Internet done? For one thing, there is no research which is very narrow-minded and restricted to one city or to one country. Research is international. So the research scientists, particularly the physicists, were the first to appreciate the Internet. They could immediately talk to their colleagues, exchange ideas, exchange papers, reprints, all kinds of things. So researchers' lives was dramatically changed in India in the 80s by the arrival of the Internet. Then educational institutions also joined. Today wherever you go, you find dozens of computers in every educational institution, people sitting around typing away on that, doing something or the other on it, and many of them using the internet, benefiting from it enormously. Education and research have been impacted enormously. Then there are other things. There is an industry, the information technology industry, along with the IT, information technology, enabled services, ITES as it is called. And these two sectors of the field, let me call it one sector, the IT and ITES together as one sector of the economy, today is worth about 6.5% of the GDP. And what is 6.5%? We were amazed the other day, a friend and I sat down and did some calculation, and we found all the rice, all the wheat, all the jowar, all the millets, everything, all the food grains we produce in India in a year is worth less commercially than what the IT and ITES sectors produce. 6.5% is about half of agriculture. Agriculture is about 14% today. But agriculture involves dairying, poultry, forestry, fisheries, etc., 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 vegetables, fruits, and all that. IT is not as big as agriculture. But I think given another 8 years, IT and ITES will be bigger than the whole of our agricultural sector. Not to say it will be more important than agriculture. Nothing can be more important than agriculture. We need it. But in terms of economic terms, in terms of jobs created, in terms of the quality of the jobs created, in the kind of challenges those jobs create, the intellectual challenges those jobs create, and the prosperity that brings to a nation, and what it does to the balance of payments. These are all amazing things. All this happened during what time? In 1998, IT industry was probably about 1.5% of the GDP. Where is 1.5%? Where is 6.5%? It has rapidly grown. And in another 8 years, as I was saying, I expected to overtake the whole of agriculture. So there are big expectations. But the biggest expectation is information and knowledge are very closely connected. They are not the same thing, but they depend upon each other. Is it possible that the internet will completely change education? Can we use the internet and teach billions of Indians that we are not teaching very well today? And therefore, can we teach the high schools better? Can we bring about a revolution? There are big expectations. Now, my concern is these big expectations do not take the reality into account. We have to be careful. We want to dream big and we want these things to happen. But let's not forget there are problems. And I will discuss largely the problems today. Because the first step for progress is to understand the problems. If we do not understand the problems, we are never going to solve them. And one of them is I'm going to talk about the language barrier, the cost of the services as it is made available today, and the complexity of what is involved in making computers continue to work and solving problems they create. And 2 hours before I came to this meeting, I was sitting there making a telephone call to Airtel, complaining that my internet at home was not working well, going through all kinds of problems. And therefore the operator said, sir, we have to log into your modem, you have to reconfigure it, we are going to give you a new DNS number, and we are going to do this and we are going to do that and so on. You have to set an IP address, I will tell you. Now, for me, it should not be difficult because I've been in this business for 30 years or more. And on the other hand, I shudder to think, we want millions of school children to get involved in using IT. We want them to have internet on their cell phones, on their tablets, and we want to spend millions and crores, or thousands of crores giving them tablets. But if they're all as complex as the devices are today, we are making life difficult for them. And therefore the complexity is an important issue. I will talk about that also. And I will talk about some possible solutions. Because to talk about only problems without solutions is to be without hope. And I will raise a bit of hope. Now let us try and summarize the particular, a specific dream in the use of the internet in education. You know, this kind of a site we see all the time. The phone is in the hands of everybody. It's a pleasure to see the guy who cuts grass in our building. I looked out from the balcony, and the guy has a cell phone in his hand and a sickle in the other. And between cutting grass, he stops for a minute and talks to somebody. Puts the phone in the pocket and then goes back to his work. It's a great pleasure to see him, that he's in contact with people, he's able to schedule his activities. He works as a gardener for various people and goes to various houses. People call him and say, when are you coming today? I'll come at such and such a time. The cell phone as a personal communicator has almost reached 50% of the Indians. The number of cell phones is equal to the number of Indians almost. But that means that many people have 2 phones or 3 phones. That doesn't mean every Indian has one cell phone. But it's not bad. Quite a lot of Indians have the cell phones. That is great. We would like something similar to happen in the field of education and knowledge. And what would that be? That is this idea that this little device in your pocket is a window to the world of all human knowledge. There is nothing on earth that is known to man that you cannot call up on your cell phone screen if you have an internet connection and if you know how to use the search engine properly. Unfortunately, we do not teach our children, we do not teach our students how to use the search properly, how to explore knowledge. You know, as a matter of fact, many of us believe you do not have to educate people in anything. You have to educate people in only one thing. How to learn something. That is, learning to learn is more important than learning. Learning a lot of detail about some field is irrelevant. It is unnecessary. You teach me how to learn anything that I need to learn when I need it. I will go and learn it on the day as and when it is needed. All my life I will be learning something or the other every day. We all do that. And this learning to learn and to have a device which gives you answers to any question you can raise. If human beings know the answer, then the answer is, you will get it. At least you will get a lot of information about it. If you are able to frame a new question for which there is no answer, you are a great original thinker. We need you. But most of the time people ask questions for which answers exist. Information exists. And this device, the connected cell phone or the tablet or the PC or the laptop, that is the solution to making available this Pandora's box. And whether it is good or bad, the Pandora's box came with its own problems, but making available all the human knowledge to an individual readily at their fingertips is a dream. Is a dream for which the technology exists today, but there are social problems which make it difficult for us to use that technology to go and make all the 1,200 million Indians immediately more knowledgeable. So let us look at some of the dreams of the government of India today. With a view to take the internet at the grassroots level, the finance minister announced a plan. This is 3-year-old news, 2011. And the announcement was, this was Mr. Chidambaram announcing, that he has created a plan which will take the internet to 250,000 villages of India. And what percentage is that of Indian villages? 40%. 40% of India he wanted to cover with internet and rural areas. And more recently, the Modi government allocated 500 crores of rupees for internet connectivity to villages. This is PTI news. It's not entirely correct. If you carefully read all the news or if you read the budget, the 500 crores is for a number of things put together. One of them is this connectivity to the villages. But the dream is, we want 40% of our villages to be connected. Already there are about 20,000 Panchayat Union towns. Every one of them is connected by fiber optic cable, and we have broadband there. Now these schemes of the government of India talked about taking broadband connectivity to practically half of the villages of India. So these are the dreams. But what are we going to get out of this broadband? If you take a broadband connection into a village, what difference will it make to the lives of the people? Are there any difficulties in using it? That's what I'm going to talk about. Look at the statistics from the Telecom Regulatory Authority. It says people like you and me who have an internet connection at home through a wired connection, through the telephone cable, we are only 1.5 crores. About 1% of the population of India, 1.5% of the population of India, we have the wired internet connection. What about people who have a cell phone and pay for internet connection? That is 4 crores. That is, like maybe 3% or 4% of all Indians. And what about wireless subscribers? That is the people who just have a cell phone. There are 893 million subscriptions are there, but people like me have 3 subscriptions. Therefore, about half of Indians probably have a wireless subscription. And this is the statistics. And many people abroad took one look at it and jumped. And one big international consultant wrote a presentation which she made available to the world through the internet, and everybody talked about it. And this was saying that 42 billion will suddenly grow into 900 billion. Because everybody has a cell phone, and in principle on the cell phone you can get the internet. How easy is it to get cell phone on the internet? It used to be complex in the old days, but now it is trivial. You don't need anything. You have to make one phone call to your service provider and say, I want internet on my cell phone. That's all. Once you say that, the internet is switched on for you and you can use it on your phone. You don't have to pay a monthly subscription. Immediately you start using it. Which means every student can start using the cell phone to access the internet. But it is not without trouble. There are problems. We'll talk about the problems. But the international idea was that suddenly everyone in India with a cell phone will become an internet user and will completely transform India. I think it's bunkum. That is not true. There are various problems. And what are the problems? Problem number 1 is this. Every year the advertising world looks at the Indian readership survey, which tells us how many people read newspapers, what language newspaper do they read, how many of them pay for that newspaper, how many of them borrow it and read it. All this information is available. And this information we have used over a period of years, 20 years now. We have been following this because we want to understand one thing. How many Indians use English as a medium to acquire knowledge outside the classroom? That is best answered by the readership survey. Because, imagine you tell a taxi driver, go to the signal, make a left turn there, and he turns left at the signal. Does it mean he really is using English? Can he use English now to look up the Wikipedia on his cell phone and understand something about a disease that his son has? That's not true. He cannot use English as a medium of knowledge acquisition. But look at the statistics. 2 crores of people read English newspapers. And the number of people who read Hindi daily, the top 10 Hindi dailies, incidentally the top 10 almost cover a large population. And of Hindi newspaper readers, most of them read one of the top 10 newspapers. There are 7 crores reading Hindi newspapers, 6 crores reading, whether it is Kannada, Tamil, Malayalam, or whatever, Oriya, and there are these 6 crore. So 13 crore people depend upon Indian languages, and 2 crore people depend upon English. What is 2 crore? It's about 2% of India. 2% of India uses the English language newspaper to acquire knowledge outside the class. Only 2%. Remember that. The internet is unfortunately practically all in English. There is a Kannada Wikipedia, there is a Hindi Wikipedia and all that. But unless you search for it yourself, you will not find out how good or bad it is. And I'll give you examples. You know, I'm very keen to see people learning useful arts. Arts which give them a job. Some little bit of science, a little bit of technology, some little bit of practice, like a nursing education. Look at the nurses who kill themselves, risk their necks, going to Iraq to earn a living, to make their families live better. And these are the people who make the economy run, and we have to worry about them. Suppose one of the nurses is scheduled for an interview, and the nursing student wants to learn about something called anaphylactic shock. Anaphylactic shock is very important to all of us. You know, we could just die within 2 minutes of an injection with anaphylactic shock. And in a city, very good doctors make sure that that doesn't happen easily, and they know what to do if it starts happening. They can hopefully stop it. But if the nurse wants to find out what is anaphylactic shock, there is nothing on the internet in Hindi. I did a Google search yesterday or the day before, and I typed in search Hindi pages. It says anaphylactic shock. There are about 20 dictionary entries which tell you anaphylactic shock is this, one-liner. There is no article in Hindi on anaphylactic shock. And Google kindly offers to translate English language article on anaphylactic shock in any language you want. You try it and see how readable it is. It is such a miserable translation, you won't understand anything of it. Unless if you knew already what is anaphylactic shock and you knew English and you knew Hindi, then you get something out of the translation. But then you don't need it. Similarly, imagine a young person who drops out of school, fails the school, and says, I want to get a job, and job is not available. My brother-in-law is willing to buy me something or the other with which I can earn a living. I want to buy a digital camera. I want to read about the digital camera. I went and did a search, Hindi language search on digital camera. There is nothing. A young man cannot read about the digital camera. I went to the library nearby. I live near the Southern Circle. I went to the Southern Circle Public Library and tried to look for information in any language on digital cameras and on anaphylactic shock and things like that. There is nothing. The state government says 70% of the budget for public libraries will be set apart for local language books. Very good idea. I am very happy they are doing it. But the 70% is spent buying novels. And these novels are all selected centrally. Big bundles of books are added. And you go to the Southern Circle and you will see all the bundles are there unopened. There is no space on the shelves. The local librarian is not consulted. Somebody somewhere in the center decides, in Bangalore of course, somebody decides to order 6,500 books, one for every library. And these are all bundled properly and set. And the publisher gets money, and the author gets money. And there are publishers and authors who are very, very proficient in making sure that books are all selected by the central authority. But ultimately the young man who wants a job can't learn anything useful out of these novels. And that is a tragedy. Will the internet solve the problem? No, it doesn't solve it. So the language is a fundamental problem. Second problem. I was curious to know if a schoolgirl wants to download something interesting about, and I helped a lot of school children to download articles. I usually download them on my machine, print them and give it to them. If they want to write an essay on something, okay, I'll get you the information, I download it and give it to them. Suppose you want to download an article on rice, as an example, Wikipedia article, it is 6 megabytes, and it is 27 pages, and I downloaded it on my cell phone. And I paid 250 rupees, which is a very sensible, practical sum of money. I don't want to pay a lot. On the left hand side, you will see my plan. 250 rupees per month data plan. Airtel, that gives me 1 gigabyte, which is 1,000 megabytes for 250 rupees. The cost per megabyte is therefore 25 paise, and the article I got for 1.5 rupees. The article on price. But suppose there is this school girl who does not want to pay 250 rupees a month. She cannot afford. She can't even afford the 100 rupees, which is the minimum data plan. She doesn't pay that. Still, thank God, the cell phone company allows her to access the internet. But at what cost? It says 10 kilobyte for every 3 paise. It looks small. 10 kilobyte for 3 paise. But that means 3 rupees for a megabyte, for which I pay 25 paise. And by the time the school girl downloads that article, it is 18 rupees. And in the ration shop, she will get a few kilos of rice for that 18 rupees, leave alone that 18-page article. So, internet is expensive. It is, for me, it is 250 rupees for a gigabyte. By mistake, if she got interested in YouTube and somebody showed her how to listen to music and dance and to good talks and bad talks on YouTube, she would suddenly spend everything that is on her phone. Thank God most of them have prepaid phones, so she will run out of money before she will overspend. But my sister made a mistake. My sister, who is about 60 years old, was teaching her little grandchild music. And she wanted to give good music, and therefore she discovered she could use the YouTube. And she was very smart. She lives in a house where there is Wi-Fi, and her daughter and son-in-law live there. They are in the software field. So it's a well-equipped house with internet connectivity, Wi-Fi. And she started seeing YouTube through Wi-Fi. She thought it's all Wi-Fi anyway, we don't have to pay extra to the cell phone company. But at the end of the month, there was a 1,500 rupee additional bill. The internet bill had gone up by 1,500. And when they asked what is happening, what is new, why are we consuming 1,500 rupees more? YouTube, music for the grandchild. So it is a post-paid connection. If you have post-paid connection and you don't watch it at that kind of a rate without a data plan, and the example I am giving you of my sister is, she was paying not for the cell phone connection, but using the cell phone she was going through Wi-Fi and the landline connection. The landline cost her 1,500 rupees more. So you can suddenly run into large expenditures, and everybody knows that. And people living at a lower level of income, they quickly recognize that their cell phone quota for the month can suddenly get exhausted by something. Therefore, they don't touch the internet. They are afraid of the cost. So, cost is the second impediment to the use of the internet. Third, the user interface is very complex. And I have suffered personally. I suffer all the time. Only thing is, every time I suffer, I write an article about it and put in my blog, so that others will hear about it, and hopefully the people who run these systems will read it and understand the sufferings of the user. And I spent hours on a telephone fixing a problem. Internet not working comfortably. Internet fails very often. And call the service provider. I pay 2,000 rupees a month for my landline internet. And therefore I get what is called the platinum service, a quick response to a call. I don't have to wait to listen to a lot of music before I get to the operator. But with all that, I had to make dozens of calls. I took the modem to the man who sold it. He said there is no trouble with the modem, you go back to Airtel. And after several calls, finally he said you configure the modem, you change the DNS, you change the IP address, you do this, you do that, and finally, all my experiences described here in my blog, obvioustruths.blogspot.com, and there are a few articles on the complexity of the user interface, how complex computers are, how complex laptops are, and unless we make them simpler, the dream of having the common man use the internet will not arrive. The dream will not be realized. So that is the third impediment. I am going to now come into a conclusion. In conclusion, let me say one thing. These are not hopeless cases. There is hope. There are simple solutions, inexpensive solutions. I want to talk about two of them, 2 slides, and with that I will complete. There are 55,000 libraries. When I was making slides like this 3 or 4 years ago, I used to say there were 70,000 public libraries. The number of public libraries is going down. Public libraries are closing. People don't go to public libraries so much now. Why? We all have to worry about it. We all grew up. I would not have been here giving you a talk, but for the fact there was a public library near where I lived. I could not afford to buy books. I used to go there and study in the public library. But today's public libraries are going down. But still there are 58,000 of them. There are more than 2 lakh secondary schools. And that is 9th and 10th standard schools. And I include also 11th and 12th standard schools, higher secondary and lower secondary. If you wanted to buy 1 book each for all these libraries, that single book will cost you 1.5 crores of rupees. 60 rupees per copy multiplied by 2,50,000 comes to 1.5 crores. And if you bought 10,000 books to equip these libraries with a modern set of 10,000 books, you can imagine 1,500 crores of rupees. Electronic books may be a solution. And one of the things that this great big broadband will bring to the villages is these 10,000 books. To every library you can give 10,000 books free of charge, because they will be on the internet. What about the cost of the internet? We will talk about that in a minute. I have been trying to send a proposal, persuade people to adopt it, particularly the government. Why not give every author of a selected book, select 100 books a year, give 2 lakhs of rupees to the authors on one condition. You give your copyright to us so that we can give you a book in electronic form free to every public library and to every high school. And we'll give you 2 lakhs of rupees and a certificate saying your book was selected for an e-book award. And you name it after anybody, any great man of India. And translate it into 24 other languages of India. I was surprised last night. I was checking out how many languages do we have. There are now 24 official languages of India, not including English. It is considered a foreign language, so it is not on the 8th schedule, but it is an official language. If you add it, it's 25 languages. If you translate them into all the 25 languages and pay 15,000 rupees or 1 lakh of rupees for each translation, you can still manage in a reasonable cost of 15 lakhs of rupees per e-book, available in all languages of India. And I do not want novels for that kind of cost. I would prefer, if there are great novels, I don't mind, but third-rate novels, no, just to keep some publishing going. I would like to see useful books, books for nurses, books for vendors, books for photographers, people like that, people who earn a living, who have to live. And so that was one possibility. I think it might be a small contribution. If you see how much it will cost, at 15 lakhs of rupees, if you arrange, you give awards to 100 authors a year, it will cost you 15 crores of rupees. And if you got 1,000 books a year, it will be 100, is that right? 15 lakhs of rupees into 100 will make it you 15 crores. 15 crores at one level, and if you get 1,000 books a year, it will go to 150 crores of rupees. These are things which are within the reach of the government to spend. As a matter of fact, the library budgets and the school budgets will even pay for the electronic books because you can sell them very cheaply. You don't have to pay them at 60 rupees, charge them at 60 rupees each. Now come to the internet cost. It turns out there is a man, you can read about him on the Facebook and on the internet. His name is Mahabir Poon, P-U-N. He's a Nepali. He went to the University of Nebraska. And recently, 10 years ago, he went to the University of Nebraska and took a degree in science education. And he went back to Nepal. And he is a social worker. He is not a scientist. You know, there are good scientists in India who have done good work on the internet and so on. For instance, they connected Kanpur to Lucknow and the gadgeting basin was covered by Wi-Fi and so on. So they wrote a nice paper and went home. But Mahabir Poon was not a scientist. He was a science educator. His heart is with the villagers and the people. He lives in the village. And somebody gave him a grant of $500,000 after years of work, I'm sure. But with that $500,000, he went and connected 200 villages. And he used a very simple technology. The same Wi-Fi you and I use at home, he used to connect villages. And he said, these 200 villages, actually, technically it is 175 villages. And in the 175 villages, he provided Wi-Fi connectivity. He had one community hall. Anybody who wants internet can go there and use it. He sells subscriptions at 30 rupees a month. 1 rupee a day is what is his subscription. And today his network is self-supporting and self-propagating. Now that kind of technology we can use. We are a much richer country. We are much richer than a small country like that. And in this country, when we are spending 500 crores of rupees to take broadband to the villages, we have to provide Wi-Fi in every school. There are some problems. One of them is our principals confiscate the cell phones if the student brings them to the college or to the school. And we have to stop confiscating cell phones. But the kids use the cell phone for everything other than knowledge. So how do we prevent this? There are ways. One of them is, you don't have to have cell phones with voice facility. If they want voice, they can pay for it extra and add it, but give them a cell phone which is only for data. And you can arrange it that this will access only the school education network through Wi-Fi and nothing else. And then they can access anything what is called the .edu domain, or some parts of the .edu domain. Or maybe in addition to .edu, you might want to make available one more domain or whatever. You can make all these operational decisions, but controlled access to meaningful stuff, not videos, not running around the trees and Bollywood dancing, and not porno in any case. So I think it's possible to control cell phone usage and give free internet access in every school and in every public library. If attendance in public libraries is falling rapidly, the biggest cure for that would be to offer free internet access. Any citizen can walk into the public library with a cell phone or with a tablet or with a laptop and use the internet. As long as they are happy with the .edu. You get all the knowledge free, all of human knowledge, but you do not get running around the trees. You pay for that. And so I think these are possibilities. There is hope that we might be able to do things to make the internet useful to people who do not want to kill themselves learning English. And the rate at which the country is adapting English is such, 1 or 2 generations may completely lose all knowledge. Because if we depended upon only English to give us knowledge, we are going to be without knowledge as a country. And today there is this tragic situation. Many people who send their children at great cost to an English medium school, but not to a local language school. Their children do not know good enough English. They are not able to teach it. The school is not able to teach it. As a result, the children learn nothing. Neither English nor the subjects they are supposed to learn. And instead of being in this tragic situation, I think we must make greater use of Indian languages on the internet. We must make more Indian material available. whether it is about health, whether it is about jobs, whether it is about whatever information, unless it is available in Indian languages, the internet is not going to be of use to rural India. So I think with that more or less, I have concluded all that I wanted to say. Any questions and comments are welcome.